The neon lights of Halfway Tree buzzed, a stuttering hum that cut through the humid night air. Samuel stood at the edge of the taxi stand, his weight shifting from one heel to the other. 12 hours of standing had turned his legs into lead. Every time a vehicle pulled up, the headlights swept across the pavement, dragging long, jagged shadows behind the commuters. He pressed his palms against his thighs, trying to force the ache to subside, but the street offered no stillness. The crowd surged around him, a constant tide of bodies moving toward the bus lines and the waiting cabs. Samuel watched the rhythm of the transit hub. He saw the way people guarded their space, the way they clutched their bags, and the way they checked their watches with frantic precision. He was a stationary object in a city that refused to stop. The flickering light above him pulsed, casting his own shadow against the concrete. He stood firm, eyes scanning the chaos, searching for a pattern in the noise. A taxi pulled into the curb, tires crunching over loose gravel. The driver killed the engine and reached into his pocket, pulling out a thick, folded wad of cash. Samuel leaned forward, his focus narrowing until the rest of the street blurred into static. The driver did not toss the money aside. He held the stack with both hands, his thumbs working with practiced, rhythmic precision. He smoothed the edges of every bill, aligning the corners until the stack was perfectly flush. He opened a worn leather wallet, tucked the currency inside, and pressed the snap shut with a sharp, metallic click. The sound cut through the ambient roar of the traffic. Samuel watched the driver slide the wallet into his pocket, his movements deliberate and unhurried. There was a quiet authority in the way the man handled the paper. He was not just holding currency, he was managing a resource, treating the bills like something that required care and strategy. Samuel stood motionless, his eyes tracking the driver as he stepped out to check his tires. The driver was gone, but the image of the wallet remained burned into Samuel's vision. He looked down at his own palms, calloused and empty. He lifted his hands, fingers slightly curled as if gripping an invisible stack of paper. He began to move. His right thumb brushed against his index finger, a slow, deliberate motion meant to smooth an imaginary edge. He aligned his fingers, pressing them together until the skin turned pale, mimicking the way the driver had squared the bills. He snapped his wrist, a sharp, silent motion that mirrored the click of the leather wallet. He repeated the sequence, his eyes locked on the space in front of him. He felt the phantom weight of currency between his fingers, a heavy, solid pressure that existed only in his mind. He straightened his posture, trying to hold the imaginary wallet with the same quiet authority he had witnessed minutes before. His shoulder muscles twitched with the effort of maintaining the pose. He took a step forward, his foot catching on a piece of debris, nearly sending him stumbling into the gutter. He caught himself, the illusion shattering instantly. Samuel looked at his hands, then back at the street. The noise of the market was no longer just a wall of sound. It was a series of transactions. He watched a woman hand over coins for a loaf of bread, and the baker immediately dropped those coins into a metal box. He watched a man trade a watch for a stack of bills, and the man checked the bills against the light before folding them. Every movement was a link in a chain. Samuel stopped trying to replicate the motion and started studying the result. He saw that the money did not disappear. It moved from one hand to another, changing form, fueling the next action. He realized the driver had not just been holding paper, he had been holding potential. The money was a tool, a lever used to move the world. Samuel leaned against a brick wall, his eyes scanning the crowd with a new, cold clarity. He was no longer looking for scraps or handouts. He was looking for the cycle. He watched the way people prioritized their exchanges. He was no longer a bystander in the chaos of the street. He was a student of the machine, watching the gears turn, waiting for his moment to step into the flow. The sun had not yet cleared the horizon when Samuel returned to the corner. The city was still gray, the air thick with the damp chill of the morning. He found his spot behind a stack of wooden crates, hidden from the main flow of early commuters. He waited. 10 minutes later, the peanut vendor arrived. She pushed a small, wheeled cart, the metal frame rattling against the uneven pavement. Samuel watched her stop at the designated spot. She did not look around or hesitate. She moved with a practiced rhythm, unlocking the cart and checking the supplies inside. She pulled out a heavy burlap sack, the fabric stiff and coarse. She set it down with a dull thud. Samuel shifted his weight, his eyes locked on her hands. He noted the way she checked the quality of the nuts, picking through them with quick, precise movements. She was preparing for the day, and for the first time, Samuel saw the foundation of her work. He pulled his knees toward his chest, bracing himself against the cold, and focused entirely on the cycle beginning before him. He was no longer just watching a person. He was watching the start of a process. The day had begun. The vendor struck a match, and the portable stove roared to life with a sharp hiss. A blue flame licked the bottom of the metal pan. She poured a measure of raw nuts into the heat, the sound like dry rain hitting a tin roof. Samuel watched, mesmerized by the rhythm. She did not stand still. She kept the nuts moving with a long, flat spatula, tossing them in a steady, circular motion that never faltered. The air around the cart began to change, thick with the scent of roasting earth and salt. She adjusted the flame, turning the dial with a quick flick of her wrist, never taking her eyes off the browning skins. Every few seconds she would lift a handful, inspect the color, and drop them back into the heat. There was no wasted energy in her movements. She was a clockwork mechanism, turning raw potential into value with every pass of the spatula. Samuel leaned forward, his hands gripping the edge of his crate. He saw the transition happen in real time, the pale, dull nuts darkening, hardening, becoming something people would pay for. He watched her pour the finished batch into a cooling tray, the steam rising in the morning light, and he understood. She was not just cooking. She was manufacturing her own survival. The morning sun climbed higher, and the street grew loud with the roar of bus engines and the shuffle of commuters. The vendor shifted her focus from the stove to the crowd. She moved with a new intensity, her hands darting between the bags and the outstretched palms of customers. Each exchange was brief. She took the coins, dropped them into a metal tin, and handed over a paper bag in one fluid motion. Samuel watched the pile of bags on her counter shrink. He tracked the rhythm of the sales, noting how she never fumbled for change. By noon, the last bag was gone. The cart was empty, save for the cooling tray and the heavy metal tin. She didn't pause to wipe her brow or lean against the wall. She stood straight, pulled the tin toward her, and began to count. Samuel held his breath, his eyes fixed on her fingers as they sorted the coins. The tension in the air was palpable. She closed the tin with a sharp click, secured the latch, and looked toward the horizon. She was finished with the morning. The vendor did not head toward the shade of the nearby trees to rest. She folded the empty paper bags, tucked the metal tin securely into a hidden compartment, and began pushing the cart through the heat. Samuel trailed her, keeping his distance, his own stomach cramping with hunger. He expected her to stop at a food stall to trade her hard-earned coins for a meal. She walked past the vendors selling patties and cold drinks, her gaze fixed firmly on the wholesaler's warehouse at the end of the block. She reached the counter, placed her earnings down, and pointed to a massive crate of raw, unroasted nuts. The wholesaler nodded, sliding the heavy container toward her. She didn't hesitate. She traded the entire morning's profit for the new stock. Samuel watched from behind a stack of crates, his jaw tight. She was not eating her success. She was feeding it. The money was not a reward to be consumed. It was a seed to be planted. Samuel remained crouched in the shadows, his eyes locked on the vendor. She was back at her post, the new, larger crate open and ready. She moved with a mechanical precision that made the rest of the street seem chaotic and slow. She wasn't just a person selling nuts. She was the operator of a system she had built herself. Samuel raised his hands, mimicking the way she scooped the nuts, the way she weighed the bags, the way she sealed the paper. He traced the movements in the air, trying to map the logic of her efficiency onto his own life. The realization settled in his chest, heavy and cold. The cycle was a machine, and she was the one pulling the levers. Every action she took was a calculated gear turn, designed to keep the engine running. He watched her hand a bag to a customer, take the coin, and immediately drop it into the tin. It was a closed loop. He felt a sharp, hollow ache in his stomach, a reminder of his own empty pockets, but the hunger no longer felt like a dead end. It was the fuel for the machine he had yet to build. He stood up, his legs stiff, and watched the vendor pour another batch into the roaster. She was the architect of her own survival, and for the first time, he saw the blueprint. The afternoon heat in Halfway Tree was a physical weight, thick with the smell of exhaust and roasting nuts. The street was a blur of motion, a frantic dance of people chasing buses and shouting for fares. Samuel stood near the curb, his eyes scanning the crowd, when the rhythm of the street suddenly fractured. A charcoal-colored sedan glided through the gridlock, moving with a deliberate, slow grace that ignored the blaring horns around it. It pulled to a stop directly in front of the taxi stand. The surrounding noise seemed to dampen as the rear door opened. A man stepped out, his movements measured and precise. He did not rush. He did not look at the vendors or the bus conductors. He stood for a moment, his gaze sweeping over the pavement with a cold, analytical intensity that cut through the surrounding mess. He checked his watch, adjusted his tie, and let his eyes settle on the chaos. He was a point of absolute stillness. Samuel watched the man stand there, a pillar of calm amidst the swirling dust and shouting commuters. The man was not checking his phone or looking for a ride. He was simply existing in a space he seemed to own. Samuel felt his own pulse thrumming in his throat, a dry, rhythmic hitch that made swallowing difficult. He looked down at his own hands, then back at the man. The distance between them was only 10 feet, but it felt like a canyon. He took a breath, the air tasting of grit and diesel, and forced his legs to move. His boots scraped against the concrete, a sound he hoped the man would hear. He didn't run. He didn't shout. He walked with a heavy, deliberate slowness, his hand drifting outward as he closed the gap. His palm was open, fingers slightly curled. He stopped just within the man's personal radius. He extended his hand further. "Please, sir," he managed. "Anything will help." The man did not reach for his wallet. He did not offer a dismissive wave to clear the space. Instead, he remained perfectly still, the ambient roar of the taxi stand fading into a dull, distant hum. He turned his head slowly, the movement smooth and controlled. He did not look at the grime on Samuel's skin or the state of his feet. He bypassed the surface entirely, his eyes locking onto Samuel's with a weight that felt like an interrogation. The air between them seemed to thicken, pressing in as the man held his gaze. Samuel felt the instinct to look away, to drop his hand and retreat into the crowd, but the man's focus acted like a tether. It was an analytical, piercing observation that demanded more than a simple transaction. The man tilted his head slightly, his expression unreadable. He held the silence for a long, agonizing beat before his lips parted. "Why are you begging, son?" he asked. The question hit Samuel like a physical blow, forcing the air from his lungs. He blinked, his eyelids fluttering, as he tried to find a defense, a practice line, or a way to retreat. But the man was still there, his focus unyielding, a steady point in the spinning world of the taxi stand. Samuel felt the heat rise in his chest, not from the sun, but from the sudden, sharp exposure of his own reality. He tried to swallow, but his throat was a desert of dust and nerves. He looked down at his own trembling fingers, then forced his chin up, meeting the man's eyes once more. The noise of the street, the honking horns, the shouting drivers, seemed to drop away into a hollow, ringing silence. He felt the weight of every day he had spent on these streets pressing down on his shoulders. He opened his mouth, his lips dry and cracked, and the sound that emerged was not a plea, but a confession. It was a thin, jagged rasp, barely audible over the distant rumble of a bus. "Because am I hungry?" he whispered. The words hung between them, stripped of all pride, raw and absolute. The man did not blink. He did not pull away. He simply absorbed the truth. The man stood motionless for a heartbeat longer, his gaze never wavering from Samuel's face. He seemed to be weighing the words, letting them settle into the space between them. Then, with a slow, deliberate motion, he reached into his pocket. His hand moved with a calm precision that stood in stark contrast to the frantic energy of the surrounding street. Samuel watched the movement, his own breath hitching in his chest. His fingers twitched, a reflexive urge to reach out, but he forced himself to remain still. The man pulled a single bill from the depths of his pocket. He did not hand it over immediately. Instead, he held it suspended in the air, pinched between his thumb and index finger. The bill fluttered slightly in the breeze, a small, crisp rectangle of potential that felt miles away from Samuel's trembling palm. The man kept his hand extended, keeping the money just inches beyond Samuel's reach. He watched Samuel's eyes track the paper, his expression unreadable. The seconds stretched, turning the simple act of giving into an agonizing test of patience. Samuel felt the hunger in his gut sharpen, a physical ache that pulsed in time with the rhythmic tapping of his own heart. The man held the bill steady, refusing to close the distance, forcing the boy to wait, to watch, and to feel the weight of the moment before the transaction could be completed. The man finally moved. He brought his hand forward, closing the final few inches of space between them. Samuel felt the rough, dry texture of the man's fingertips brush against his own skin as the bill was pressed firmly into his palm. The contact was brief, yet it sent a jolt through his arm that felt like a sudden surge of electricity. He curled his fingers instinctively, trapping the paper. The weight of it was impossible to ignore. It was $500. The number echoed in his mind, a massive, impossible sum. Samuel's breath hitched, a sharp, ragged sound. His entire body stiffened, his muscles locking as the reality of the transaction took hold. The shockwave of the gift rippled through him, from his clenched fist up to his shoulders, making his knees tremble against the pavement. He stared down at his own hand, watching his knuckles turn white as he gripped the money with a desperate, frantic intensity. He was holding a lifeline. And for the first time in his life, the fear of the next hour was eclipsed by the terrifying, exhilarating weight of what he now held. The man did not pull his hand away immediately. He leaned in, his face inches from Samuel, his voice cutting through the roar of the traffic like a blade through heavy fabric. "Listen carefully," he said. The sound was sharp, precise, and devoid of pity. Samuel looked up, his eyes wide, his breath catching in his throat as the man continued. "Money will come and go, but if you don't learn how to keep it, you will beg forever." The words hit Samuel with the force of a physical blow. They were not a suggestion. They were a cold, hard truth that stripped away the comfort of the gift he had just received. The weight of the bill in his palm suddenly shifted, feeling less like a lifeline and more like a test he was already failing. Samuel felt the air leave his lungs, his chest tightened, and for a moment the world stopped spinning. The man's gaze remained locked on his, demanding an understanding that Samuel was only beginning to grasp. The warning echoed in his ears, drowning out the honking horns and the shouting vendors. He stood there, motionless, his heart hammering against his ribs. He was not just holding money, he was holding a responsibility that threatened to crush him if he did not change. He felt breathless, shaken, and entirely exposed. The man pulled back, his presence retreating as abruptly as it had arrived. He did not look back. He turned on his heel and stepped directly into the churning tide of the evening rush. Samuel watched him go, his mouth opening to speak, to ask, to thank, but no sound escaped. His throat felt constricted, dry as dust. He took a half step forward, his weight shifting, but his legs refused to follow. He was anchored to the pavement by the sheer gravity of the bill in his hand. Around him, the city surged forward, a blur of motion and noise that seemed to ignore his existence entirely. People brushed past his shoulders, their footsteps rhythmic and indifferent, yet he remained motionless. The bill felt like a stone, dense and unyielding, pressing against his palm. He looked at the spot where the man had stood a second before, now occupied by a faceless stranger hurrying toward the bus. Samuel closed his fist tighter, his knuckles aching, his pulse thrumming in his fingertips. He stood frozen, a solitary figure in the relentless street. The city lights blurred into streaks of neon as Samuel finally moved. His legs felt heavy, dragging against the pavement with every step. He reached his usual corner, but the familiar shadows offered no comfort tonight. A sharp, rhythmic ache bloomed in his stomach, twisting like a serrated blade. It was a physical demand, a hollow roar from within that drowned out the distant hum of traffic. He looked toward the food stalls lining the street. The scent of roasted meat and warm bread drifted through the air, thick and intoxicating. It pulled at him, a physical tether dragging his feet toward the light. His hand trembled, the bill still crushed inside his fist. The hunger was not just a sensation, it was a predator, clawing at his resolve, whispering that one meal would not matter. He sank to the ground, his back hitting the cold brick of the wall. The pain intensified, a sharp stabbing pressure that made his vision swim. He curled his knees to his chest, trying to compress the emptiness, trying to stifle the urge to run toward the stalls. Every instinct screamed at him to spend, to consume. He squeezed his eyes shut, the bill pressing into his palm, a hard, unyielding reminder of the choice he had to make. The struggle was no longer against the street, but against his own desperate body. The smell of frying plantains and spiced chicken drifted across the pavement, a heavy golden scent that seemed to pull Samuel to his feet. He stood, his knees shaking, and moved toward the light of the stall. The vendor was busy, flipping pieces of meat with a metal spatula. Samuel stopped 3 feet away. He watched a customer hand over coins and receive a steaming paper bag in return. The transaction was simple, immediate, and final. Samuel felt his hand twitch, the bill in his palm damp with sweat. He could have that bag. He could end the hollow, twisting pain in his gut right now. The vendor looked up, her eyes scanning the crowd, and for a heartbeat she looked directly at him. Samuel felt the weight of the money, the potential of it, pressing against his skin. He looked at the food, then at his own clenched fist. The hunger roared, a physical force trying to drag his arm forward, but he planted his feet. He did not step closer. He did not speak. Instead, he turned his back on the heat of the stove and the promise of the meal. He pulled his arm in tight against his chest and walked back into the shadows. Samuel collapsed into the darkest corner of the alley, his breath coming in shallow, jagged gasps. The pavement was cold, leaching the heat from his skin, but he did not move. He curled his body into a tight ball, pressing his knees against his stomach to dull the sharp, rhythmic spasms of hunger. He closed his eyes, forcing the darkness to become a screen. In his mind, he saw the peanut vendor. He replayed the scene, the morning crate, the steady roasting, the reinvestment of every coin into a larger load. He saw the driver at the taxi stand, his hands moving with precise, practiced grace as he organized his wallet. He focused on the driver's hands, the way they treated currency as a tool rather than a fleeting relief. Samuel gripped his own fist, imagining the $500 inside not as food, but as the seed of a machine. The pain in his gut was a fire, but he fed it with these images, turning the agony into a cold, hard focus. He was no longer just a body waiting to be fed. He was a mind calculating the next move. The morning air was sharp and thin when Samuel finally emerged from the alley. He walked past the food stalls, his eyes fixed on the wholesaler's warehouse further down the street. His stomach gave a violent, hollow twist, but he ignored it, focusing instead on the $500 clutched in his palm. He reached the wholesaler, a cavernous space filled with the scent of sugar and dust. He didn't look at the expensive goods. He walked to the back, where the smaller items were stacked. He pointed to a crate of water bags and a box of sweets. The wholesaler looked at him, then at the money. Samuel held his breath, his heart hammering against his ribs as he extended his hand. The exchange was quick. The wholesaler counted the bills, pushed the goods forward, and turned away. Samuel felt the sudden weight of the inventory in his arms. It was heavy, awkward, and entirely his. He didn't head back to the alley. He stepped out onto the sidewalk, the bags pressed firmly against his chest. He was no longer holding money, he was holding potential. He took his first step as a man with a trade. The bus stop was a chaotic swirl of movement and noise. Samuel wove through the throng, his arms aching under the weight of the water bags and sweets. He stood near the idling engines, the thick smell of diesel stinging his nostrils. A bus pulled up, its brakes screeching in a high-pitched protest. Passengers surged forward, eyes glued to their phones or the departing transport. Samuel stepped into the gap between two commuters, his throat tight. He held up a bag of water. A man brushed past him without a glance. Samuel felt a surge of panic, his grip tightening on the remaining stock. He took a breath, stepped into the path of a woman fanning herself in the heat, and held out a sweet. She paused, looked at the item, and pressed a coin into his hand. The transaction was instantaneous. The weight in his arm shifted, becoming lighter. He didn't stop to celebrate. He pivoted, scanning the crowd for the next person. A group of students approached, and he moved toward them, his voice finding a steady, rhythmic pitch. He was no longer a ghost in the crowd. He sold another bag, then a sweet, his movements becoming more fluid as he learned to anticipate the flow. The hunger was now a secondary concern, eclipsed by the rapid exchange. The midday sun turned the asphalt into a shimmering heat trap. The rush of commuters slowed to a trickle, leaving the bus stop quiet. Samuel stepped back into the shade of a concrete pillar, his legs shaking with a deep, bone-weary fatigue, his stomach cramped, a sharp reminder that he had not eaten since the previous day. He sank to the ground, his back against the rough wall, and reached into his pockets. He pulled out the crumpled bills and the handful of coins, laying them out on the flat surface of his palm. He counted them once, then twice, his fingers moving with precision. $700. The number stared back at him, clear and undeniable. A surge of heat, different from the sun, flooded his chest. It was a sharp, electric triumph that made his breath hitch. The dull ache in his gut seemed to recede, pushed into the background by the sheer weight of the accomplishment. He looked at the money, then at his own hands, which were stained with dust and sweat. He closed his fist around the cash, feeling the texture of the paper against his skin, and leaned his head back against the concrete. The exhaustion remained, but it was now a badge of progress. The smell of fried dough and spiced meat drifted from a nearby stall, thick and heavy in the stagnant air. Samuel stood up, his stomach twisting in a violent, hollow protest. He took a step toward the scent, his hand instinctively gripping the $700 in his pocket. He could buy a meal. He could end the ache for an hour. He stopped. He looked at the vendor, then at the empty paper bags in his own hands. The image of the peanut vendor and her crates flashed in his mind. He pulled his hand from his pocket, the bills still folded tight, and turned his back on the food. He walked with a stiff, determined gait toward the wholesaler's warehouse 3 blocks away. Every step was a battle against his own body, but he did not falter. He reached the counter, laid the entire $700 down, and pointed to a larger crate of goods. The clerk counted the money, nodded, and pushed the stock toward him. Samuel lifted the heavier load, his muscles straining under the weight. He turned toward the bus stop, his arms burning, his mind focused only on the next sale. The cycle was no longer a theory, it was his reality. He was the operator now. Samuel stood by the bus stop, the weight of the new crate pressing into his shoulder. His stomach gave a sharp, hollow twist, a physical reminder of the hours since he had last eaten. He braced his feet, shifting his weight to balance the load, and watched the crowd surge past. A week ago, this movement would have triggered a frantic, desperate need to beg. Now, he watched the commuters with a steady, analytical gaze. He saw the patterns in their movement, the rhythm of their spending, and the flow of the market. The sharp, cold dread that usually gripped his chest at sunset was gone. It had been replaced by a quiet, rhythmic pulse of purpose. He felt the hunger, but it no longer felt like a predator stalking him from the shadows. It was just a sensation, a manageable variable in his day. He adjusted the crate, his hands steady, and looked toward the horizon where the sun was beginning to dip. The fear of tomorrow had evaporated. The memory of the man in the charcoal suit surfaced, clear and sharp against the noise of the street. If you don't learn how to keep it, you will beg forever. Samuel stood at the curb, the weight of the crate grounding him. He looked at his hands, calloused and stained, then at the coins he had earned. For years he had lived in the trap of the next hour, the next meal, the next scrap of pity. He had been a prisoner of his own hunger. He shifted his weight, his spine straightening until he stood at his full height. The trap was still there, the streets were still hard, and the hunger remained a constant, dull ache in his gut. But he had stepped out of the cycle of desperation. He looked at the bus stop not as a place to hide, but as a place to trade. He had chosen this. He had chosen the weight of the crate over the ease of the handout. He tightened his grip on the wood, felt the grain against his palms, and turned his back on the sidewalk where he used to sit. He was no longer waiting for the world to give him a reason to survive. He was building his own. Samuel pulled the coins from his pocket, the metal cool and heavy against his skin. He lined them up on the flat edge of the bus stop bench, stacking the silver and copper in neat, precise columns. The rhythm of the counting was steady, a stark contrast to the frantic, erratic movements of his past. He looked up, his gaze drifting to the glass pane of the nearby storefront. A figure stared back. He didn't see the hollowed-out eyes or the slumped posture of the boy who had once haunted these corners. He reached out and touched the glass, tracing the outline of his own face. The grime was still there, but it no longer defined him. He swept the coins back into his palm, the metallic clink sounding like a promise. He turned away from the window, his stride long and purposeful. The bus arrived, brakes screeching against the asphalt, but he didn't scramble. He waited and stepped forward with the calculated confidence of a man who owned his future. The traffic roared, a constant, grinding pulse that once signaled only chaos. Now, it was simply the background noise of his workplace. Samuel stood at the center of the bus stop, his posture rigid, his eyes scanning the crowd not for pity, but for opportunity. A young boy, hollowed by hunger and shivering in the shade, approached him with a trembling hand extended. Samuel looked down. He saw the same desperation that had once defined his own existence. He did not reach for his coins. He did not offer a handout. Instead, he reached into his bag, pulled out a single pack of sweets, and placed it firmly into the boy's palm. "Sell these," Samuel said, his voice steady and low. "Do not eat them. Sell them, and come back to me tomorrow with the profit." The boy blinked confused, but the authority in Samuel's tone held him in place. Samuel turned away, leaving the boy to his own choice. He stepped toward the edge of the curb, his movements fluid and precise. The sun beat down on the pavement, turning the asphalt into a shimmering mirror of heat, but he did not flinch. He adjusted his grip on his remaining stock, took a deep breath, and stepped into the flow of the city. He walked forward, his stride unbroken, disappearing into the heart of the bustling street.